Good evening, it's the Pro Synth Network live show, episode 49, I think, 48, 49, I don't know. It's almost a year, basically. How weird is that? We're going to have to do something special. My name's Rob Puricelli. This is the Pro Synth Network live show. As ever, I am joined by my fellow co-hosts, Mr. Ben Simpson and Cryss Synthient. How are you, chaps? Cold in California, is it?
Yeah, it is a bit cold.
Ah, he's got his hat on, you see. Look at me, look. I'm sporting my my number one all over.
Wow.
Yeah. I asked my wife to cut my hair at the weekend, and we have some of these, kind of shaver things. And she hates me having really short hair, and yet she did this. So it's really weird. But it's nice because I get out of bed in the morning and it's one less thing to take care of.
Did she have a fit halfway through, or
I don't know. She had sunglasses on, I think, and it was dark. Which is usually how I find my wife, wearing sunglasses in the dark. You're joined by a little furry friend there, Ben?
Yeah, I'm minding him while Vicky nips out for a second. She'll be back soon.
You're looking rather dapper, I must say. Have you job interview?
Well, not yet. I had to go to work this week. It was very arduous, but yeah.
Did you like how I didn't use the typical northern quip? Have you just got back from court? That's normally Scousers, isn't it? I love Scousers, but it's normally that's the one. What do you call a Scouser wearing a suit? The defendant. Anyway, welcome everyone that's in the chat room. Hello. Let's go. We haven't done names for a little while. Let's go through in reverse order here. So really not picking any preference. Inky, hello. Mark Barnes, hello. Aaron, Imperfect, Synth Addict, Martin Taylor, Stephen. I'm going to avoid saying the surname because I don't want to get it wrong. Ken Flux is here. I know obviously Flux isn't your last name, Ken, but it's just everybody knows you as that Flux dude. Atto Z, Native VS, Yanacetta, who else is there? Sasquatch, welcome, sir. I was about to say Bend Over, but it's not, it's Ben Simpson. Jim Glue, and Simon's here, and Wilderness Music, Keith in Watford. All you guys and girls, you are most welcome. Thank you for joining us. Mark Acker, hello. Welcome. This is Pro Synth Network Live. We are guest-free this week. We're just taking a breather. It's just like, guest after guest after guest. We just need a break.
Good ones, yeah.
We have had some good ones. And boys and girls, we have got some even better ones, with all due respect to the people we've had, just as good, shall we say, equally good, coming up in the next few weeks, and there'll be more on that a little bit later on in the show. We've got a brilliant guest next week, which I think we've already announced, Dina Perlman.
Yeah.
And so we've got some news about that, and then we've got maybe some news about some guaranteed booked guests. They've signed on the dotted line. We're going to be talking about all things kind of music technology. It's been a fairly slow week, but there's been some interesting things come up, and one or two of them might even kind of spark a lengthy debate about the subject matter in hand. So please do join in. If you're in the chat room, throw us your questions, your comments in there, and we'll read them out as much as possible. Let's also just do this. So if you don't already follow us, you can find us all over the interwebs, in the socials, as the kids say. So Facebook, Instagram, and also Twitter, on which Facebook and Twitter we are broadcasting live, as well as YouTube. And if we had the ability to do Instagram, we would, but we don't. But you can follow us in all of those 3 places at ProSynth Network. If you want to help us carry on doing these shows, then please do consider donating. We've had some donations come in today, and the bank balance is looking very healthy in terms of our future aspirations, which is a holiday in the Bahamas with 3 blonde bikini-clad ladies. That's what we're going to do with that. So yeah, if you want to donate to that cause, and please do, it's Cutley /PSN PSN-donate. The link is down below in the video description. No more about that. Welcome to the ProSynth Network show, and we will carry on and do our first news topic, I guess. Let's do a nice little one to start off with. This is actually it's kind of non-news. It's a pending thing, but we thought we'd mention it because we are fans, and we've often spoken about this company before and their excellent products. So this is Cherry Audio, who have let's see. I should have got it straight there. There we go. And that's it, folks. That's all you're getting. You're just getting some Morse code and a date of March 15th, which, of course, is Monday. So let's see. Any ideas? Let's hands up. Who thinks they know what this might be?
I've got a rough idea. Cryss seems more confident.
Go on. Yeah, well, either way, come on, chaps. Put your balls on the line. State your claim.
Well, I think it's either going to be a OB8 or a Jupiter 8. I think it's going to be something 8.
Well, that narrows it down.
It's an 8 voice that's, and I don't know Morse code, so I haven't got a clue what that's saying. I don't know
8.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Right. Oh.
Somebody's Siri just went off.
Yeah. I don't think it was mine.
No, it happened to me. I was on a call with someone this afternoon, and something they said had the same concert or same thing that had Siri in there, and it triggered it. So the Morse code at the beginning of that video, let's just bring that back in.
Right. That sound.
Yeah, we might as well jump there.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it's a Jupiter 8 anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it's so. Yeah, that Morse code there is Morse code for 8. And then, Cryss, you deciphered the title, didn't you?
Yeah, I just went and looked up on a Morse code chart. I don't have any of that stuff memorized or have any use for it. And I can't remember what my translation was. Was it like March 15 or something?
Yeah,
or?
It was March 15th, something, 2021. Okay. Yeah, it was just... So it's literally a date and the number 8.
Yeah, but also looking at the color of it would suggest Oberheim 8 voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looks like everybody's jumping on the OB8 wagon. Or the Oberheim wagon, just to be a bit more general.
Yeah.
Whether this is... 8 would suggest an 8 voice, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Be interesting, because these guys really do... they're not the most accurate, shall we say. They're not the most feature-laden, but for the price, these are incredibly good plugins. We've had... I have to remember some of these names now. There was the DCO, which was the 106. There was the realistic, or surrealistic as they called it, which is the MG1.
That's been my favourite so far.
Yeah, that's a good little synth, that. And there were some others as well, and they're all being...
the Polymode one?
Yeah, of course, the Polymode, yes. That's my favourite one. I forgot it completely. Do you know, as we've been talking about this, I've literally just had an email come through from Cherry Audio.
Oh.
That tells me absolutely nothing more than what we have just been talking about. So scratch that. I just thought...
Way to build it up.
wouldn't that be just brilliant that the email comes through just as we're on air? So we don't really know what it is, but as everyone seems to be speculating, it sounds more Oberheim. It sounds
it does,
Jump-esque. It's that same chord, isn't it? So let's wait and see. It's something to look forward to on Monday after the weekend. Yeah, makes Monday a little bit more palatable.
There's quite a few OB8s about, isn't there? It's
Well,
they don't seem
not
concerned
the OB8,
about.
but the Sims.
Yeah. Well, there's an OPX, isn't there? Well, that's a, yeah.
That's an OBX though.
Yeah, yeah. There's quite a
Go
few
ahead, sorry.
Oberheimy kind of software emulations out there anyway, but it'd be interesting to see if they can, if that demo is the actual plugin, then it sounds pretty good there.
Yeah.
So if they can bring that sound quality to the price range that they usually operate in, then people are in for a treat.
So how gutted would you be at Cherry Audio if you had been developing an 8-voice Oberheim plugin and then 2 weeks ago GeForce drop OBE?
Oh, no,
You've got to be pretty sick. So hopefully this is something
I don't
different.
think so though, and here's why. The way that GeForce is doing it and component modeling, and like we've had this discussion many times with Roland and the legendary ACB stuff versus Zencore. And so if you're putting out something, I mean, this is going to be whatever a fifth or something of the price of the GeForce one. So I'm sure a lot of people will pick it
It'll
up.
be an
But
option,
if you're GeForce, you've done a really good model of it. I think where Cherry Audio fits in is they're a little more the Zenology of the way style that they do things. It's like they've got their blocks, blocks of synthesis, and they put them together. Okay, we want to do an Oberheim, so we're going to do a 12 decibel filter instead of the 24, and like very kind of vanilla envelopes and that kind of stuff. And we've had a little bit of criticism for the sound, or at least I have, as far as Cherry Audio, and I'm not sure that like their filters are not the greatest, but do they serve a really good place in the market? Absolutely, because for $29 you
It's a
can
no-brainer.
start making some really great music. So it's good to have both, because a lot of people are not going to want to spend the money on the GeForce, or perhaps they can't get it right yet because it's not out for PC yet. So here's just another great option for it. For me, if it were something else, like I'm probably done with Cherry Audio. I was not really. I like this, like Ben. I like the serialistic one, and have some ways of processing that I think it actually sounds really good. But I'm not really a big fan of their sound. But since it's one of my favorite synthesizers, the OB8, might I pick it up? I'm not sure. I guess I'll have to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're very you're very right in what you say, that it's incredibly affordable compared to what else is out there. But also, as you say, in the absence of a PC version of OBE at this time, and probably not going to see one for at least a year, I would say, then if this is an 8-voice, in the same sort of fashion, then brilliant. There's your box ticked. And even if you want to buy OBE when it becomes available on PC, then having spent $29, you're not going to be throwing money away, because you'll get a decent synth, we would hope, for that intervening period. So interesting to see. One to keep an eye on.
I don't think we can complain about having choices.
Oh gosh, no, absolutely not. No, not at all. So fingers crossed. I say fingers crossed. If you want an affordable OB8 voice, then that could be the one for you. Lots of speculation in the video chat from lots of people, but I think everyone's kind of gravitating to an Oberheim of some description, and say, given that color scheme in the video, it does point to that. So I don't think there'll be any massive surprises there. Cherry Audio, keep an eye out for that. Cherryaudio.com. And obviously on their socials, I'm sure they'll be making an announcement at some point during the day, American time, because I think that's where they're based. Right, let's do that. I'm going to leave that one to later, because that's probably going to be a heavy discussion topic. How about we talk about what Google are doing right now, which is knocking the ball out of the park in terms of music stuff at this moment in time. So just the other day, they launched their new project on Google Arts and Culture, and it's called Music Makers and Machines, 3 distinct terms. And this is the front page of it, and it is, it's just typically Google. It's very well designed, very well laid out, and an absolute wealth of brilliant content. So there are mini exhibitions. Some of them are interactive. Lots of them have got video and audio. Huge amounts of information. There's stuff there about the telharmonium and how electronic music really kind of started over 100 years ago. And then there's things about club culture, and then music on screen, be it video games or films, and then three-dimensional representations of instruments, including the original MPC 60, the 808, Odyssey, 909, CR78, Emulator 2, Roland SH101, the Prophet 10, the original Prophet 10 that is, the CS80, and my favourite, of course, which is the Fairlight CMI. And these are three-dimensional representations, and looking at the Fairlight alone, it's a pretty accurate one. And these have been modelled from units that are kept, this particular one, from the Swiss Museum and Centre for Electronic Music, which is that giant kind of warehouse full of stuff. And you can go in and you can zoom around your Fairlight and have a look at the connections at the back. You can just zoom in there and look very closely at the general interface box at the back and see the power supplies and the fuses and all the connections, and go underneath it. And as Ben discovered, if you zoom right in,
you can go inside.
There's not a lot in there, is there? Look at that. There's nothing. Let's go into the mainframe. Let's see if they've modelled anything in the mainframe. Oh no, they haven't.
See, I knew all that digital stuff didn't have any meat to it.
It's all smoke and mirrors. Now, I'll tell you what, though, there is not a lot apart from the keyboard mechanism. There's only one PCB in that keyboard that controls everything. Everything else is just empty space that gathers tobacco shreds and shreds of other things that musicians put in their fingernails, beard, hair.
Did I tell you about the Electro-Harmonix Electric Mistress vintage one that came upon? Mm-hmm. So Buddy and I opened it up to fix it, and we found somebody's stash from probably the late 70s.
Wow.
Brilliant. So moving swiftly on before we get busted by the drugs police, there are loads of other studio tours, virtual studio tours. The Rise Studio in Milan, that's fantastic. Stuff in Berlin and Munich and Paris, and then you can actually meet the innovators, so Pierre Schaeffer, Alan R. Perlman, Daphne Oram, and of course the Bob Moog Foundation have a whole bunch of stuff in there, something like 13 exhibits, and it's just an absolute wealth of stuff. And one of the most fun things on there is this thing called AR Synth. So let's just click on that. This is very cool, and this allows you to kind of have your own little 3D studio. Now, if you have a mobile device, you can actually do this in AR, augmented reality. But here are your 5 devices, and each of these devices has a little step sequencer. And then you can program, so they come with patterns already in there. So, for example, if we kick off the memory Moog, it's probably not going to work for me now, is it? Launch. There we go. Let's launch this. I should have really preloaded all this before we go, but there we go. So play in 3D, let's do that. Here we go. So we're in the studio now, so we can just say, let's drop a Fairlight in. So we'll click on the Fairlight, and it should drop in. And interestingly, they've used the additive synthesis element of the Fairlight, not the sampling thing, which is very interesting. And you can just turn that off, but you can zoom in, and once you've zoomed in, you can also place things on the grid yourself.
It's not updating for me on screen. I don't know if it's the same.
Oh, you're not getting. It's probably because it's. There we go. I think what it is because. Let's do this. I bet it's a different tab.
So while that's going, we're having to...
There we go. Aha! So, yeah, if you drag on the screen, you can mess around with the waveforms there. And you can then drop in a CR78. And you can then drop in an Odyssey. and it's just super fun. And you can then just go in and zoom closer into the instruments and mess around and mix and just create stuff. It's just a lot of fun. It's really good. This comes off the back of also what's the other thing, the blobby thing that they did, the musical blobs. They're doing some great stuff at the moment.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, that was good.
So
but this is good as well.
This is fantastic, and the whole exhibition, which I've only scratched the surface of this thing. It is just amazingly detailed. Something else that they've also done is
hold on a second.
Sorry, yeah.
We're having a conversation in the chat, so this is the what I got in Mutable Instruments, my last one.
Oh, right.
Oh,
I see.
So they're saying Aaron was talking about stashes, or people were talking about getting stashes and pedals, like we're talking about the Electric Mistress, and thought it was candy. But like Mutable Instruments actually ship with like little wooden toys.
That's
and this
cool.
I got with beads.
With beads. Oh, he's got his beads. So yeah, the other thing that Google have done in the last couple of weeks is this thing called Magenta. It's between Google and Magenta. It's called Tone Transfer, should I say. And what this does, this is dead clever. So they've analysed and sampled and done lots of whizzy cool things that allow you to take an input and convert it into something completely different. So let's, for example, take a cello performing, and you can change it into a saxophone or a violin or a flute. You can take birds chirping and turn that into a saxophone. And it is just fantastic. And then now I need to stop it because there we go. Let's pause. Stop! Oh, it's like that Monty Python sketch. There's only one thing for it. What a way to... I mean, I sit here sometimes. I sat here last night. It was about 10 o'clock, and I thought, I'm going to go to bed about midnight. That would be fine. And then I opened something like this, but the next thing you know, it's midnight. And I wanted to play on other things and do other things, but the time has just gone. These guys are coming up with real time-wasting things, but they're quite fun.
That technology needs to get into a DAW, doesn't it, really? Refine that. And so you've got all your instruments in a track.
Yeah.
And you say, I want the lead guitar to be doubled up on the bass guitar.
Yeah.
You just,
exactly. But it's just
some sort of input output combination.
I mean, you can imagine that somebody like me who has no skill whatsoever with wind instruments, but I can maybe play that line that I want the flute to play.
Yeah.
And rather than use a synthesizer, I can just do that and play it, and it just comes out like a flute with all the correct intonations. And apparently they had loads of really skilled musicians and were analysing what they were doing, and then it's I think it's a combination of samples and machine learning code and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But of course it's all being done in the cloud, which means that it's obviously using Google's incredible server farm capability. So I don't know how soon we'll see this in a small thing.
I think what you'll have to do is promise Robert that you're going to compose something with the Blob Singers and then translate it into saxophone and all sorts of stuff and put it at the end of the show.
Oh, at the end of the show, like I've got nothing else to do. But seriously, wouldn't that be fun if you composed something and recorded that and then played this into this? See, that's the other thing. It's not just this demonstration where you just pick what they've given you. You can put your own stuff in up to a point. I think it's like a 15-second thing at the moment.
And can you download that?
I think you can. I think you download the audio. So yeah. I mean, it's really it's very interesting. Andrew Brooks says, and I'm assuming he's referring to this. Can't stop myself wondering, why would you bother? Am I alone in this? Explain yourself, Mr. Brooks. I mean, it's just fun, isn't it? At the end of the day, I mean, for us, we've clearly surrounded by lots of things that make musical noises, but for other people who maybe not, so much, or just want to dabble, this is good fun. I'm sure.
Yeah. I think this could like open up things at more of a entry level for people who don't, play particular instruments well, or maybe you can sing all right, but you don't play a musical instrument. You can input into a DAW with this kind of technology. And there's some of the stuff already exists in DAWs, as Aaron pointed out. Like you just need to have pitch recognition. So if you can take audio files and turn it into MIDI very similarly. So, I mean, this could be something where you can, sing in parts, somebody who's not really, that advanced with the instrument. But there's also, more advanced uses of it too, where a lot of us, we're making music that's composed of many different instruments, but we don't play all those instruments. So, it's common for this group anyway to use keyboards to input that, but, same kind of technology, or purpose anyway. Like, maybe I want to use a guitar to put in some string lines or a keyboard part. So there's got to be some way to translate all that stuff. But it does open up a lot of possibilities. And if they could figure out a way to do this in an even more sophisticated manner, because you're kind of getting a very generic form of this, like, we're going to translate, this into a saxophone sound, but, everybody that's played saxophone knows it can be an extremely nuanced instrument between how you breathe and articulate things. So if we can get some sort of like MPE action happening with that, that as you articulate with your voice or whatever it is that you're using, that it also will articulate into the end instrument, that would be interesting. But also too, I mean, imagine, I think this would have some uses in Eurorack, in that you could have a field recording of something, like they've got birds on there, and then you could use that to generate random melodies and things for your Eurorack and your ambient compositions.
This comment here has just literally crystallized everything that's just been going on in my head. It's auto-tune for your ideas. One of the demonstrations is somebody singing a line, so like that, just literally that, and then feeding it through, and that's translated into an instrument. And so if you want to get an idea out, this is, wouldn't this sound great with a flute? But I haven't got a flute, and I can't play that piece, but I've got it in my head. Use the microphone and get it translated, and see how it sounds. It might not be accurate, but it's close.
Yeah, Synthetic was talking about Synaptic also does some with this, and so I can't remember which plugin it is. I know I have it, but I think it's maybe Morph, if I recall correctly. But you can set two different instruments into this plugin, and so, for instance, guitar and drums, and then you end up with this kind of hybrid of the two that it sounds like a mix of the instruments. So you bring in both the rhythm and the tonality or the timbre of it together into a really unusual morph, this third instrument that is quite fascinating, because it's getting you kind of amalgamated textures that don't exist in the wild.
Yeah, I just think it's dead clever. I mean, it's clever from a, piss away 2 hours of your life on the internet, but also, the potential. We can now do this stuff. All right, it might need a few years to be compressed down into something that we can run on a computer here in our domestic environments. But the potential is fantastic.
I think we can achieve some of that potential now, but it's in a long-winded kind of way. You've got to, you've got to convert this, you've got to do that, and then attach that to samples or whatever, and that's quite long-winded, and the results can be a bit mixed. But if you've got, say, recording of a band and you're engineering it, and you haven't got access to the musicians anymore, but there's a line that you need to have it in the track,
you've got the performance,
you've got the sounds. If you can just change what those sounds are playing, I think that'll be invaluable.
There's another one. Absolutely.
In studio applications.
You can't get hold of the guitarist because he's swanned off to Ibiza and coked up out of his head. But we need him to do that line with a different tone, and so let's do that.
And we've got Jimmy the saxophonist here who's willing to put the solo down. We'll just translate it. We'll translate it into Bert's guitar later.
That way everybody can be unhappy.
Exactly.
Yeah. You took my line and made it to a guitar part?
Anyway, so there you go. Google are literally knocking it out of the park at the moment. Some really cool electronic music stuff. And it's all completely free of charge. And Google Arts and Culture, if you don't already have Google Arts and Culture in your favourites list or even as an app on your mobile device, then do so, because there is some amazing stuff on there. It's one of these things, it's a bit like the BBC. People complain about the BBC, but they have so much content that's out there for everyone. Maybe this only resonates with people in the UK. But Google, again, everybody complains about Google, but some of the stuff that they just throw out there for you is very educational and enriching, and well done them. Let's move on, and what should we do next? Little announcement that was made just today, and we should be going to our pedal expert Cryss in just a moment to tell us what he thinks of the new pedal from Eventide, which is the micro pitch delay. Let's have a quick look at that and listen to it. This is the micro pitch delay pedal from Eventide. It came out today. I don't have a cost. Maybe Cryss has that information, but it is a gorgeous tone that's coming from these pedals. Cryss, you are clearly our expert in these matters. So, what can you tell us about this pedal? Any idea on the price, what it does, how it does it, where it comes from, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I didn't even catch the price on it. They have. What was it? The Black Hole has come out already.
Yeah.
So probably the same price as that. I think the Eventide micro pitch, at least for guitar players, I could say for sure. I'd be curious to know if there are some famous synth examples. I'm sure there are, but guitars are very used to the Eventide micro pitch algorithms, and especially like in the 80s. Where you had a lot of Van Halen stuff that was done with it, and just on and on. Anyway, this pedal does like kind of the detune chorusing with the pitch. Also, will do delay. It's not really new now. The form factor, I believe this is the second in their new series of pedals that are just taking one of their algorithms and putting it onto a pedal with knobs on it, so it's a little more immediate than say using an H9. But as I understand it, at least if somebody knows differently, please let them know. It's pretty much all the same algorithm stuff. So they have been doing their plugins, the H9 stuff, which is derived from all the time factor, mod factor, pitch factor, space, all those pedals. So I mean, there's really nothing new under the sun. I think it's a great format for a pedal, but kind of expensive at the same time. At least if it's the same price as a Black Hole. But I
can tell you it's $279.
Yeah, just too much for me as far as what it does. But you guys, Eventide, instead of innovating much anymore, like about 15 years ago even, they were still seemed like they were doing a lot of innovation. We were bringing out the time factor pedals. But in this intervening period of time, they've basically just been recycling everything. So, I understand the immediateness, and this would appeal to people who, when I play guitar live, like I've got feet on the pedal turning knobs all the time. Like I got lots of little continuous controllers just by moving knobs with my foot, and got used to playing like that. So I like that immediacy, but as far as the money spent on it, to me, something like an H9 is a lot more value, and so it's a little bit harder to adjust from the pedal itself. But then you use the iPhone app, and you're just fine.
Yeah. Ben, do you think this is something that interests you? Put your vodka away. Look. Turn your mic on.
Sorry. I was just, just having a quick swill. It's not really for me, but I did think it had a great sound. What does the USB do on it? Is that just for updates or?
I assume so.
Yeah.
Update some firmware and models.
Yeah, it's pretty much what they've done for all their other pedals too. So the H9 and then the Factor series, all able to update firmware that way or connect to apps. So
yeah,
I mean, which is nice. I'm glad that they've provided all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to have a selection of pedals, but I'm just too synth orientated. If anyone comes my way that is flexible in any way, it tends to go on synths or drum machines. Really.
And the thing is, nowadays, so many synthesizers come with great effects units built in, and we have so many effects plugins that I often look at these things and think, well, I bet you I can go into my collection of plugins and find something that does something that's close to this if I really looked.
Yeah, I've just sold a SPX 2000 because I just wasn't using it anymore. Because my first port of call for effects now is just a computer, and because everything has got its own individual input, it's just as easy putting it on there as it is setting up any hardware. So I've got to be honest. Lunar Landers taken top spot in my effects. I
really
just
good.
love that, and I haven't got round to. There's an update, isn't there? I haven't got round to trying that yet, but that's become my secret sauce.
Yeah, and that annoyed me a little. They call.
What do I use live?
Yeah. So since you're a synth player live, what do you use for effects?
I use main stage live, so everything kind of.
So you're still using all your regular plugins and everything.
Yeah. It's just samples through main stage, and then just put on whatever I use here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another benefit of it as well. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
You can have exactly and multiple instances of that thing. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
So.
Very true.
I think plugins are the future for me.
Yeah. Eventide call this your secret sauce, but then they're telling everybody it's your secret. It's not really secret anymore.
Yeah.
And that thing that would make you stand out is also going to make everybody else stand out because they'll all go out and buy one. Strange tagline, but no questioning their quality. Maybe a little bit on the pricey side, but is it for us? I don't know. But there you go. It's
going to hit home more for guitar players.
Yes,
definitely. I think it would sound great on synth as well, but I think guitarists and like hardware synth guys like Modular are going to probably have a little more a similar philosophy about playing in effects. I mean, I noticed it since I haven't been able to play live for a little while with all this at like my pedal boards don't really get used much. I have one out in the living room that just for watching TV, and I'll play guitar or synth or something. But most of the time I think it's like I'm just plugins in the box. It ends up being so much cheaper because I'm getting all these classic sounds, can tempo sync it in my DAW, and really don't have. You can go back and mess with things later. That it's much easier to use than hardware in that regard. And I'm not doing a lot of like knob twiddling on the fly, so I mean you can always animate stuff or automate stuff in your DAW. But in the guitar world, I mean, there's not as much of people aren't dragging their computers out to gigs so much. Maybe a Fractal or a Kemper would be the closest you would get, but pedals will still be a much. Although for them, I would still say the same thing, like. Why would you grab this over an H9? I mean, no, H9's a little more expensive, but then you have access to all these other algorithms too, even if you have a couple of them on your board. Like, be done with it and not have like 6 of these Eventide pedals.
Yeah, agreed. Well, anyway, there you go. Eventide micro pitch delay is launched today. You can buy it from their website, eventideaudio.com. for $279 US. I'm sure that'll be available in a music store somewhere near you very soon. Let's do this. Let's have a discussion, shall we? This is tied in with some news. So there was news just this week that Steinberg have announced that they are moving away from the dongle. Now, those of you who are old enough to remember, including myself, recall the dreaded dongles that were giant, used to plug into the back of the printer port. They often were quite loosely connected and weren't built very well, but your thing wouldn't work without it. And many people would use cracked copies, even though they had the license and the dongle. That just the cracked copy wouldn't fail as much. And then they moved on to USB dongles and the e-licenser, which is what they use now. And of course, it's not just Steinberg. Pretty much most doors at some point had a hardware dongle, and certainly the newer ones were using software dongles. Now, we don't know yet what Steinberg are going to, but they made this announcement on their website 8 days ago, and it says, for many of you, this is the announcement you have been waiting for a long time. While we put our heart and soul into developing groundbreaking products, we haven't accomplished our promise to provide you with the user experience you deserve in every part of Steinberg's technology. So essentially they're saying an authorization system shouldn't get in your way, but it should support you in the onboarding process. Anti-piracy protection technology shouldn't restrict you as the customer, but secure your investment. It shouldn't stop you from using your products, but enable you to be creative whenever and wherever you are. These are the words of many music makers for the last, 10, 15, maybe more years. We've, the anti-dongle brigade, and I'm not using that disparagingly, but there's a large number of people who are very anti-dongle. Some so much that they will just not use it. Even though they might, it might do exactly what they want, they don't use it. Steinberg are just kind of repeating that back now, and now saying, "Hey, we're gonna do something." So they say it's too early to announce details on the schedule, but one thing is for sure: the future will be dongle free. So they're getting rid of the physical dongle. So I'm just looking at my own setup here. I have just 2 dongles now. I have my iLock, which I think is great because any company can use that, and there's a software version as well, so I don't have to have the plug, the thing plugged into my USB. And the other one is my e-licenser, which I don't have for Steinberg anymore, but Vienna Symphonic Library, or VSL, whatever it's called, I have it for that. I used to have the propeller head one, but they don't use that anymore. That's all done software. So what do you think about this? Ben, I'm going to come to you first. You are a Cubase user. Yeah. So I would like to know what your thoughts are. Do dongles bother you? Are you happy? Does this make you excited or scared as to what might be coming instead?
Well, I'm not really bothered either way about a dongle, because in the studio anyway, because it's plugged in and you forget about it. The only thing that bothers me about it in here is it's plugged into a hub. And I keep knocking the hub off and keep thinking that I've smashed the dongle. But that's the only reason that I'm against the dongle in my home studio. Live, I've not been able to use it because I'm too scared to. Because I've only got one. Yeah. So it'd mean me unplugging it from here, and if I wanted to use Cubase Live, I'd have to plug it in there, and I'd be scared of it getting snapped off, or lost, or what have you. So I kind of welcome the idea of getting rid of the dongle for that reason, but I don't think like an internet-based thing is going to be a great solution either, because a lot of places that you go to playing live is just seeing Andy's comment there. A lot of places that you go to live, you haven't necessarily got internet access, so it wouldn't work. And I'd be worried about that. So it'd have to be some sort of software thing, because I stopped using Rolling Cloud for that reason live, and then they fixed that problem. But at first you couldn't you couldn't get them to boot up for the first time without an internet connection. And I was at a gig and I didn't have I didn't have access to any of the synths. So I was trying to do a mobile hotspot and everything just so I could do the sign-in thing.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think they've fixed that now. I think you only have to sign in occasionally, don't you?
Yeah, periodical, isn't it?
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm easy, really, but I think it's about time that they did they did get rid of it, because everybody else is moving on from it. I mean, I've got one of the iLock things as well, and then I've got a bit confused over that, because some of the things are on the actual iLock dongle and some of them are on the software version of it. I've just got dead confused with that. That's my fault, though.
I found that some manufacturers that use iLock, because iLock gives you options. You can have up to 3 activations on some instruments, but some manufacturers don't go for that option, whether that's a cost thing on their part or whether it's just because they really just want to restrict you. So, for example, the ones that I can think of that use 3 activations are UVI. So I have it on my iLock, and then I've got 2 spare. And if I on my laptop, if I want to use an UVI plugin on my laptop, I just use the software licenser on there, because then I don't have to worry about popping my dongle out. Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah, but yes, indeed. But I see.
When you need him.
Indeed, his influence is strong. I don't play live like you do. I haven't played live for many, many years, so I do not know the pain that I hear lots of people say about the fear of having it lost, stolen, snapped off by the drunken idiot at the front of the stage. To Stairway to Heaven. So yeah, I fully sympathise with that fraternity, and I recall when Propellerhead introduced the ignition key, which was their name for their dongle, which was just a little USB thing. There was uproar, but they said, look, you've got the online authorization, or you've got the stick. So either one, so you can do both. Then they introduced the onboard. The software version of the ignition key, so you could install that on one computer only. So you could have an ignition key with your licenses on, you could have a computer with your licenses on, or you could use the online stuff. And that then gave flexibility. So for your laptop, you maybe had the software authorization. For your desk unit, you had the dongle. And for any other times, if you had neither one of those, you could just log in. If you say at somebody else's place, you could log in under you and use your internet authorization. So lots of different options. But now even Propellerhead, who are now Reason Studios, are moving away from that, and it is all going completely software. So they'll have there's a little application that just runs and does all the authorization for you. And so that's going to be, I guess it's better because it's less intrusive. I don't know, Chris. What do you think? What's your feeling on dongles?
Well, for the last how many years, I've stood with every other MacBook owner who has 1.5 ports on their computer.
Yeah. This is true.
Said no to dongles.
Yeah.
So I've never had one. I've never had a dongle.
Well, I thought it was just the way you walked.
I know.
No, well, no.
Can't
well,
say
hats
I've
off to
even
you.
wanted one or have missed it.
No.
But in fact, I stayed away from anything that was iLock for a long time, and it's been more in recent years that since iLock redid their system, and you can just have an app on the computer. I guess I've also got the cloud iLock as well now.
Yeah.
I don't like that as much, but it works.
It's
I
an
haven't
option,
had any
isn't it?
problems with it.
No. Synth Addict says here, my little metal iLock is indestructible and goes with me everywhere on my keychain. Cold dead hand sort of thing works great. I've got to say, I don't go out, using my equipment. It's full of innuendo. Get out. I don't go out and about using my licenses in other people's studios. I don't go live. So, my iLock is, I'm just going to come back onto multicam. So there's my iLock. And it literally, I don't think it's even been unplugged from that socket on my keyboard there. for a very long time, and everything's licensed to that. One or two things are licensed. Then I use the software version primarily for the laptop, and that's just, it works, and it's never failed. I've never not been able to authorize or use anything.
Yeah.
I've just, my experience of iLok has been absolutely fantastic in as much as I've not had any issues,
Yeah.
Whereas I've heard lots of stories about people who have had issues with that or with others. And e-licenser has had its fair share of critics over the years. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they replace it with. Whether they're just going to come up with the same sort of thing, but a branded thing for Steinberg, I don't know. The one thing I really like about iLok, it's multi-manufacturer. So I guess, iLok make their money by charging a fee, but at least this way, I've got so many manufacturers, plugins, and what have you, all using the iLok. It means it's just a standard, and why we haven't kind of adopted a major standard when it comes to authorizations, I'm not entirely sure. And obviously there are some things where the computer is the dongle, because, for example, Logic. You can't run Logic unless you've got a Mac. So it's...
I think that the conventional systems that most people use are just fine. And you find that, people who are honest and dishonest are going to continue doing that. I mean, if somebody offers me a free cracked version of Valhalla plugin, I'm going to turn it down. Because I want to support what they're doing, because they're making freaking awesome plugins, and I don't want to steal from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and that's something that's definitely increased over the years. It's got better. There seems to be far less. Maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just not moving in the right circles. But it just seems to me that there are far less people using cracked versions of software, because I think prices have become more affordable, but B, we now appreciate more, the fact that people are working to make these things, and they need to put food on the table. And if we use those things, so the licensing thing is a required thing. It's just the execution of it over the years, I guess, hasn't been wonderful. So
I think
that's
a good point about the pricing, because some plugins were $500 or $800. I mean, I think that's going to increase the risk for it. But when you have plugins that are all the time coming out under $100, I mean, to the point where something comes out at $200, and you're like, you out of your damn mind? It's like, why am I going to buy that? I can buy something for $50 that does everything that does. So, keeping costs low on these things, and they don't have to manufacture anything. There's a huge investment of time and energy spent in making plugins, but after that point, you're just selling stuff. So
I think well, Steve Jobs did it with iTunes, didn't he? One of his initial concepts of iTunes was that it had kind of stopped piracy because the price was so affordable. It was like at 79p a track. He was really bothered.
And Spotify as well. Spotify had a huge impact, that whole subscription service, and maybe that's, forced people's hands as well.
Well, I just think that sometimes if the software is mega expensive, there's a lot of people who can't afford it, who are tempted to go down the piracy route. If the prices were a bit lower, they'd probably still make the same amount of money, because more people would be buying it, and lessening the piracy because it's more affordable.
I've often heard the argument where people say, well, I used a cracked version of this 10 years ago, and when I actually started making money, I went out and bought it. And I can see the logic, or their logic in that statement, but still it doesn't justify it to me that you've done the right thing. You did the wrong thing, then you did the right thing, but you still did the wrong thing beforehand. And then you think, well, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have the proliferation of very affordable and sometimes legitimately free DAWs and plugins. And so therefore, you literally had to have a wad of cash, or that was it. You just weren't playing ball with the rest of us. So then what's the other? Oh, I heard a story once, and I won't name the company, but I did hear it from a fairly reliable source, that they were fully aware that people were pirating their software and distributing it for free. And they were confident that those people that would use it in a commercial sense, i.e. making money with it, would always do the right thing. And that those people who were using it as a cracked copy would probably never have bought it in the first place anyway, and are not likely to be people making money with it, and therefore they're not really interested in it. And they also intimated that it was a form of advertising, a kind of try before you buy. So I don't know how true that was, how accurate that was, but again, you can see the flawed logic in some of those arguments. And
yeah, well, and some of that is, would be negated by free trials now.
Yeah,
it's like you can try anything. Almost.
Exactly. Yes.
Or stripped down editions as well.
Yeah.
If you only want something to do a specific job, that a small part of what it's capable of, it's better that you maybe get a stripped down version of it than using a pirated version of it, because you're still showing your support and interest. And if there is enough interest in something, then somebody's likely to make an updated version or a better version, or if they think something's flopped because everybody's using this thing, but they've all downloaded it illegally, and the people who made it thought it flopped.
So here's another one that I heard, something like, I remember this about 15, 20 years ago, when Contact, Native Instruments Contact was version 1 or 2. So I'm not entirely sure of when that was, but it was kind of around the early noughties, I think. And it was everywhere on everybody was using it, but most people were using it because it was so easy to find a pirated copy of Contact and get it cracked and get it running. And then you went and bought the libraries. And I heard, again, from somebody in the industry, that this was a planned thing, that Native Instruments weren't too fussy that Contact was being distributed free of charge, because they were making lots of money through the libraries and licensing the ability to access the Contact platform to third-party developers. And that has kind of been borne out when you see, certainly when you see a Native Instruments licensing deal. They make a ton of money through that. And maybe that's true. I don't know, because I haven't done proper investigation, but it wouldn't have surprised me if they thought, we'll give away the platform for free, but we're going to make all the money off the third party content.
And that's something that the company should have done, rather than rely on people making bad decisions and being immoral. Like, why not just give the opportunity for people to do that anyway, with a clear conscience about it?
And I think the industry's learned, hasn't it? The industry's learned that if they do the right thing and produce products and produce versions of the products that will onboard people at a range of price points. So those who've got all the money, go and buy the pro version. Those who haven't got much money, go and buy the standard version. And those of you just starting out, here's the light version.
And there's been so many companies lately that have really wised up about all of this, and it's great, and it's benefiting everybody to a great deal. They're getting lots of sales because of their giveaways or their cut down versions that people will then upgrade later. We think about some of the biggest plugins right now, like Supermassive, like it's free, but hopefully a lot of people are going to buy that stuff. I mean, 5 years ago, I'd tell people about Valhalla stuff and nobody had heard of it. Yeah. And now everybody knows about it. And that's because, maybe that's, I'd like to think that, a lot of it has come because it's just such a high quality sound and plugins, but a lot of it has to do with some clever marketing and giving away plugins like that. So good for them. I mean, and good for everybody else that's doing it as well. Cherry Audio with their Surrealistic, or anybody else that's doing it.
That's it. And,
I wanted to point out that Asio had pointed out that Robbie, I think you are the most prolific and biggest dongle user with all your witty devices.
This is true. Yes, I suppose. Yeah, you could call that some sort. It is. It does concern me. That concern about things protruding and getting knocked off does bother me, because like that Cobalt has got a WIDI master plugged in, and I'm always conscious that I might knock it with something. So Yes, indeed. Lots of opinions in the chat room. Thanks, guys, for some of those. I've been flashing those up on the screen as and when. I think the general sentiment that thieves can justify anything. But I think we are now living in a world where manufacturers have understood the marketplace. They understood their customers, and now pretty much every DAW has a demo version. I think is Cubase relinquished, and is there a Cubase demo?
There is a demo of 11, yeah.
Yeah. So
the thing is, with this move, though, is it going to make it easier for people to pirate Cubase? Because Cubase has done quite well on the piracy front, from what I've heard. Like,
I can't imagine Steinberg moving away from something that's going to harm them financially.
Yeah.
It would be a really stupid move. If I was the boss of Steinberg and people were up in arms about the quality of the licensing system we have now versus let's do something different and risk hundreds of thousands, if not more, in revenue, I'd stick with the crappy dongle because I'm a business and I need to make money to continue doing what I want to do. So they must have thought about it, and we can only see. I mean, dongles do work because Reason was one of the most cracked pieces of software out there up until version 5, version 6. I can't remember when the ignition key became standard, and then it literally stopped it in its tracks. You cannot find a cracked copy of Reason that works beyond. I think a few years ago somebody did it, and then they shut that down somehow. I don't quite know how it was doing it, but I mean, it's just almost completely uncrackable to a point. I guess nothing's completely uncrackable, but it stopped that piracy in its tracks. I don't go looking for pirated software, so I don't know how easy it is to find and whether it's still out there. Do people crack Logic? I don't know. Is that a thing? Because it is a paid for item, but it's quite affordable. And you have to have a Mac.
Somebody said in the chat room before, it's incredible value, and it is, isn't it? You've got to say that.
Oh gosh, yeah.
What you get in there,
and maybe that's helped. Maybe the value of that has. I
think so. I think that a lot of people just think, oh, sod it, it's only whatever. I'll just wait a couple of weeks and buy it, because then you get all the updates and everything, don't you? I don't know. I presume that they wouldn't work if you were using a cracked version, if it did exist. It's not going to log on to the Apple servers and download new sound sets and stuff, is it?
Yeah,
surely not.
I don't know. I mean, it's a clever way of of protecting your software, making it exclusive to your own platform, which is of course what Apple have traded off for many years.
And what we seem to have forgot as well is that Apple don't seem to be charging us for updates. There's been loads of updates to Logic, and it's still. I bought it when it very first went on the App Store. I bought it then, and I've not paid for it again.
So I've only ever owned it from 10. So I didn't own it previously. So I don't know if they're going to update it to 11, which I'm sure they will at some point.
Yeah.
Will that be a paid upgrade, or will
I've
we
been
get that for
on
free?
Logic since I want to say 7, definitely by 8, and so I bought it way back in the day when it was still like you bought it and you got a bunch of discs or something like that.
Yeah, that was good. That I've still got a big Logic box upstairs.
Yeah. But then I think 10 was a paid update, but I mean we're talking years and years later, and again it was only $199. So for how many years? How many years has 10 already been out? And we're only on what 10 point? Was it 10.5?
10.6.1.
10.6.1. Yeah. So I mean, it's still a tremendous value. It's hardly a subscription service. In that
And if you
way.
compare 10.6 to 10.4 or 10.3, the amount of extra stuff, like functionality and enhancements, is just great. It's probably the best £200 I've spent on anything in music, because it's just so good.
How many installs as well can you have for that? If you've got 10 Macs, can you have it on all 10?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
If if you have an Apple family account, which I do here, it means that my son can have Logic on his Mac. Albeit it's because it's an older Mac, it's in a slightly earlier version. But he doesn't have to pay for Logic. It's because I've bought it, he gets it.
And main stage as well. What's that? It's like 50p or something, isn't it?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's like $29.99. Main stage is it's brilliant. So yeah, but we're kind of getting very Apple centric here. But yeah, this is the news, of course, that Steinberg are getting rid of the dongle. We don't know what they're going to replace it with, but they have promised that they are going to do it. So I guess if that is something that is that concerns you, or you're interested in, keep your eye on the Steinberg forums, which is where I picked up that little nugget of news. The time is 8:05 in the UK. Let's do something. Shall we do this? Right. There have been a few observant people in the chat room, but we do have a very special guest, and the very special guest is with me in my studio, and that is this little beauty. Which I finally got, my Kodamo EssenceFM Mk.II. So we've got a separate camera here, and there it is. And I thought if anybody wanted to ask anything about it or see anything demonstrated, I'm more than happy to do a little quick thing. We've got some plans for more detailed looks at it, but gotta say, guys, this is probably one of my most favourite synths ever, and I've only had it for 48 or 72 hours or something like that. But yeah, it arrived on Tuesday, and it was all in one piece, and it all worked straight out of the box, and it's bloody brilliant. And I think I've even convinced at least 2 people this week that they should go and buy one. So I want some commission off Kodamo or Kodamo. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it.
You need that rack box now, though.
Well, I wouldn't want this in a rack, even though it does come with the rack ears that you can put on. If you need them.
Look great in a rack, that.
It would look great in the rack, but then how would you mess around and play with it? Because it's very touchscreeny.
The new desktop form factor, like where it has the sides, are very nice. That was a much welcome addition, and if I end up getting the Essence FM and not the VFM stuff, that's probably how I'll be using it, just sitting on the desk.
Yeah, but this is great because there's kind of like where the membrane switches are on the KX here. It's like a recess, and this kind of just sits in that little recess on the right hand side, where it is just you've got like a list of parameter numbers, so it's not covering up any buttons really, but it just sits there really nice. And so it's nice to actually have a synthesizer that's all in one place.
It's a great combo with that, isn't it? Because you've got you've got the DX look, but like the latest technology with touchscreen and everything.
Very true. I've just seen a few questions. So Sasquatch says tinkle a few keys. I'll do that in just a moment. Imperfect says what most girls have said to me over my life. It's smaller than I thought it would be. Native VS asks, how does it directly compare with the FS1R and TX816? That's a good question, actually, because somebody did ask me about the FS1R and how it compares. So, very simply, the FS1R is a very unique synthesizer in as much as it has 8 operators, which is not particularly unique, but it also has formant shaping, and there is nothing else out there that does what the FS1R does. So this doesn't have formant shaping. It's only 6 operator, but there's so many things that this does that the FS1R doesn't, that I would say that they're not really directly comparable, and they both do their own thing very well. The FS1R is quite unique. The TX816 was obviously 8 DX7s in a single rack case. So it would give you 128 note polyphony, 8-part multi-timbrality, but this has 300 note polyphony and 16-part multi-timbrality. So in terms of those things, this is better. You can stack as many 6-voice patches or 6-operator patches as you want into a stack, up to 128 voices in a patch. Each of those voices is a 6-operator FM patch with effects and their own individual settings. So it's not really comparable.
With that amount of layers, like you're saying, I suppose it's got some like pretty comprehensive modulation possibilities there.
So you have a modulation matrix that you can, I think I forget how many slots. There's about 8 slots in there. It's not that many, but it's 8 slots per voice.
Yeah.
So then you can have set. Yeah. So it gets really deep. Yanaceta says they're also coming out with keyboard versions. Not true. They're coming out with a keyboard synthesizer, which will be FM, but it's not an Essence FM with a keyboard. It's going to be different. How different, we don't know, because all they've said is it's not an Essence FM with keys on. So I'm going to start saving now, because if it's anything like this, I'll probably want it. Mark Barnes says it would be good to do a comparison with the Op 6. It really would. So if somebody wants to send me an Op 6, because I'm broke now, then please do. Korg, are you listening? So any other questions in here? So Simon Alexander, our good friend, who will be on the show very soon, I think in a couple of weeks' time, he got one same time as me, and he's been at it all day and playing with the Essence FM, and it is very true. The touchscreen is incredible. It is just instant response. It's so quick and very accurate. So it's really, really good.
So what about Robbie? Oh, sorry.
No.
Go ahead,
Go on, Chris. Oh, right. I was just going to say about the build quality, because do you remember we had all that fuss when it very first came out about like knobs not fitting on properly? And
so let's address that, shall we?
Yeah.
That's a very good point. So when this first came out, Simon and I were looking at this quite closely, and these soft knobs, there's Geert again, was sitting about 5 mil proud of the faceplate. Well, that's the reason they gave for that was that the supplier let them down and sent them the wrong size. And they did, to be fair, they did replace those on the Mark 1, but with the Mark II, there is no issue. They sit exactly where you would expect them to be. And these are all endless encoders. So the reason they're all coloured is because it marries up with features on the screen. So, for example, just above my finger there, you can see where it says pitch bend range. On the end of that, it's really difficult to move my finger in a way. There you go. So just above there, it says there's like a little green pointer, and it says 3, and that marries up with this, which is green and has the number 3, so it corresponds. But you don't have to use the rotary. You can just touch it and just slide it in enough like that. So it's very, very simple.
That did look very slick. That
the front plate apparently is thicker than the original, but only by a couple of mil. But I guess that just gives it even more rigidity. And then, of course, you've got on the Mark 1, the rack ears were part of the front faceplate. They're no longer part of it. You either have these angled stands to keep it at this 45-degree angle, or you take those off and you're supplied with a pair of rack ears and you put those on, and in it goes into a regular 19U rack. But I mean, it's just such a simple and intuitive user interface that it's I can't.
That's one of the things I was going to comment on is that because with FM, I don't have any need for hardware FM because kind of similar to our plug-in and pedal discussion, like unless it's analog, I don't particularly need it. Mm-hmm. But this is one of those implementations where the user interface on it is so great, and the touch screen and being able to kind of draw out envelopes with your finger very easily. That is one of the advantages is to having this as hardware and to making an investment in it. It's pretty nice. I mean, the Op 6 it definitely sounds cool. It seems like a really cool little synthesizer aside from not having aftertouch. But the opinions on using it have been quite varied. Our friend Jamie said he was ready to chuck it out the window. Now Mark Barnes in the chat, Angel Star Scotland, has done a lot of patches for it already.
Yeah,
he says he gets along with it really well. So, but I think this is a kind, so whereas something like that maybe there's some varying opinions on how well people get along with it. This seems to be, on all accounts, everybody that's used it that I'm been watching videos and have really loved the interface.
Yeah.
Oh, and just so we don't forget, also we should probably mention at the end of the show, Mark Barnes in the chat, who's Angel Star Scotland on YouTube, is going to be showing off his new Hydrosynth patches. He's got a new sound set coming out.
Cool.
So after our show ends, please head over to Angel Star Scotland, and or is it under Mark Barnes Sounds? I don't remember, but Mark can tell us on the chat there. But he'll be demonstrating some of those.
Yeah, yeah. Let us know in the chat, Mark, and we'll throw that up there. So I just wanted to show you this. Now, unfortunately, the space that I'm limited to means I can't really get the camera in that close. But hopefully, I don't know. Maybe if I can, I don't know if I can zoom in. Whether I'm just going to leave it because I don't want to mess it up. But hopefully, you can kind of see here on the screen that on the left-hand side you've got these. These are your operators. And they're visually displayed, and you can just pick them up and drag them. As you can see, I've just dragged that one away, and it will just drop in above the one that I move it over, or I can just drop it over there. And as you can see, they're just intuitive. They're just moving around. I can separate them into individual operators like so, or I can drop an operator onto another one, and it just hooks it up. And I can then double tap on those and mute them, double tap and unmute them, and then once they're selected, I can go in and make adjustments to envelopes. So here's the volume envelope. It's currently got 2 points on the curve, but I can add in extra points like so.
Right.
So I'll put the full complement of 5 in there, and now I can start drawing my envelope however I really want to do it, and whatever that envelope setting might be like, and then I can set loop points within the envelope. So a sustained loop point that does something halfway through the envelope, and then when you let go, it carries on.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just so it's really intuitive. Modulation and pitch. You have pitch envelopes as well, and then for the whole voice, you've then got LFOs. And this is a great feature. So you've got I think you've got space for just under 50 different waveforms, and these waveforms can be used in operators. They can be used as LFO waveforms, and not only have you got something in the region of about 29 set from the factory, the rest of them are all user definable.
I was hoping you was going to say that.
So you go into the global settings, you go to waveforms, and then you go to an empty slot, or you can change any of the factory ones if you want. But say you go to an empty slot there, and then you go into edit. So there's your waveform. But if you want to do something different, then you just draw your waveform in, like so. Now, of course, our fingers are not going to be perfectly accurate, so we can smooth those off with just the tap of a button. We can remove DC, we can set crossfades, we can flip it on the x-axis, we can flip it on the y-axis, and so you've got all of these wonderful tools to just draw your own waveforms, and you can hear it instantly, and you can mess around with it.
Somebody at the door?
I was going to say, it sounds exactly like I thought it was going to sound.
So you get like instant, feedback as to what that waveform sounds like, and then you can utilize it however you see fit. So it's like it's just very, very simple. So this is a pointless thing, really. I don't think anybody's going to be using this too much unless you just want it to demo a sound. But you have a touch keyboard on here, which is also velocity sensitive on a touchscreen. Now I know that's not necessarily a new thing, because with an iPhone you can have a touch-sensitive keyboard that uses the accelerometer. So I don't know whether this has got an accelerometer on it or whether I don't know. It's cool, isn't it? Cool that it just does that.
Has it got aftertouch on that?
It does supports aftertouch. It supports. I do believe it supports poly aftertouch. I don't have a poly aftertouch keyboard. I don't want to commit myself. Simon in the room might be able to confirm if it responds to poly aftertouch. It certainly has MPE support across the board. So you can use if you've got a Hydrosynth or something use that as a controller. But the basic principle is, you create a voice, which is just like a standard. That's pretty, FME type sound. But you get those voices, and then you can then stack them into patches, and patches can have up to 128 voices in them, and your only limitation is the polyphony. And that's just 3 instances of the same patch, and you drop it in, and you just give each instance its own volume setting. You can split it, you can pan it individually.
They used to do things like that with the TX816, is it, the DX7 ones, and have slight detunes in like say an electric piano, like
it's exactly
all
that.
of them filled with the electric piano with these slight tunes. That'd be perfect.
Well, this is it. What you can, and this is one of the things I will try and do at some point, is you create a patch with 8 voices. So 8 instances of the same voice, and then you just pan them slightly apart, and you detune them slightly apart, and that is then exactly doing what that stack TX816 sound. And so once you've got your patches, they can be very dense or very simple. You've got effects on there. You've got about 23 different effects built in, including a whole wealth of reverbs, choruses, delays, ring mods, phasers, distortion, EQ, shimmer, a whole bunch of stuff in there. So you're not spoilt, or you are spoilt, should I say, in that regard. And then you can go to performance mode, which is like the multi-mode on the S6000, where you just put in all of your programs onto each of the channels. But of course, if you wanted to, you could take 16 instances of one patch that maybe has 128 instances of a voice, and then stack it even further in the performance.
Yeah, if you had 16 of those, surely it's gonna just freak out, isn't it, when you press the key?
Only if you go over the limit. I mean, this is a very. I mean, as you can see, as I'm going through the voices, it's just very rapid. There's no delay in loading. It's just instant. So I'm just gonna try and find. Simon made a very good comment actually yesterday. He said that it actually sounds like a PCM synth, in a good way. That has that kind of depth and richness of sound that isn't distinctly FM.
Yeah.
But there's all sorts, and you can have splits and layers as well. So, thoroughly impressed. You have a little test button there, so you can just trial the sound before you do it. And this is the best feature here: undo.
Yeah,
it's just. I was going through. There's a randomization feature, as there tends to be on a lot of good synths nowadays. You just hit the dice, and it just creates an algorithm for you with a bunch of settings. And if you like it, you can just save it into a slot. And I found one, and then I was getting so excited, like flicking through. And I thought, no, actually, I like that one that was like 10 patches ago. So I just hit undo until I got back to that one, and then saved it. So it's a lifesaver.
Yeah.
I noticed somebody asked in here, does it have multi-channel USB audio? No. So the audio doesn't go over USB. There are 4 stereo pairs, so 8 outputs at the back. And you can assign anything to anything. In terms of the outputs, there is USB on the back, which is USB MIDI, so you can either connect that to a computer and it will recognize it as a MIDI device, or you can connect a controller to that and use that to connect. Then you've got regular MIDI at the back. I think everybody knows what I'll be using at the back there already. There's a USB port on the front, this one here, like so, and that is used for exporting and importing patches. It will import old DX7 patches and third party. Not all the time. It's not perfect all the time, but it does do it. One of the great things about it is that you can export the audio from it as a 24-bit WAV file. So if you want to just capture something really quickly, you just hit record. It captures your performance as a WAV file and stores it on the USB stick, and then you just pop it in wherever you want to pop it in. It's got a MIDI file player in there as well. It's just fantastic, and it's I'm very, very
Didn't
very
notice any general MIDI badges on it or XG or out like that.
Funny you should say. No, there's no general MIDI, but they have got a bank of sounds that will sort of complies with the positioning of the general MIDI stuff. So if you want to do that, absolutely you can. But it's highly recommended, and they're selling out fast.
What's the presets like that come with it? Are they
awesome,
decent, yeah.
There's a lot of factory stuff. I think there's a couple of third parties that have done things for it because, again, it's a fairly niche little thing at the moment. So there's a small community of patch creators. Kodamo have put one of those banks on out of the factory, but there are a couple of others out there which are freely available.
Right. Excellent. Yeah.
Very much in love with that.
It sounds really nice. It looks great as well. The touch screen seems like a masterstroke with the programming system there. It's I love the way that you can drag those operators about. How do you do the feedback part?
Like if you take, say, a DX7 or one of those generations of synths, you can only have feedback on one operator within the algorithm, and the algorithm is predefined for you, and so therefore the operator that has the feedback is predefined.
Right.
With this, you can still only have one operator with feedback, and it's only the number one operator. But of course, you can take the number one operator and put it anywhere in your algorithm.
Put it where you want,
Exactly. So it's kind of more flexible in that way. You can do that. So it's very, very good. Hugely impressed. Not an ounce of buyer's remorse yet.
And are we going to get like more videos on the synth?
Hope so, if I can find some time. So actually, we are thinking about doing something this Sunday afternoon UK time. So when nobody else is on, myself, Manny Fernandez, hopefully, Dr. Synth in the chat room. I don't think he's here at the moment. He's probably working. Simon as well. We might get Simon on. And the three of us all bought this at the same time. Now, Manny knows his shit, so hopefully he'll be able to teach us a few things. But we'll be able to kind of maybe do something, and if not, I'll probably be doing some demos, even if it's just like a general overview to start with, and then as I get more used to it. And I was talking to Ty Unwin today. When he calls, it's just like we're on the phone for like hours. But he said, "You've got to tell me about this Essence FM, and why should I have it?" Because it's that time of year when Ty likes to disperse of funds before the end of the tax year, I guess. So he's looking to buy stuff. And the one thing if I could sell this to anyone is that obviously FM is considered a very complicated synthesis system, and that is not helped by the fact that most synths where that feature FM have tiny little screens and little plastic buttons, and this dismisses all of that, and it just breaks it all out into a colourful, quick, simple, graphical interface. And if you can't understand FM after using one of these, then you'll have no chance ever. But this really makes it so straightforward, so understandable as to what's happening and why it's happening, and why you're getting the sounds you're getting. So yeah.
Well, there's definitely been like an FM resurgence, hasn't there?
Oh yeah.
This seems like the pinnacle of it, really, to me.
So
from
far,
what I've seen, it just
definitely
seems like the perfect way of getting into the real constructing of sounds using FM. It seems easy with that, and that's got to be a great thing.
Companies have learned, I think, the mistakes of the past, and are now producing FM synthesizers like this, like the Op6, that expose the things you need to have exposed. The controls that make it simple to understand that if I turn this is going to happen to the sound. And that's still a kind of a complex thing with FM, because it's not going to do things in a similar way to an analog subtractive synthesizer. But analog subtractive synthesis is not the benchmark of synthesis. It's just one of a number of ways of doing it. And once you get the hang of this and you understand the kind of things you get to expect when you stack operators in a certain way or route things in a certain way, then it becomes quite simple and straightforward. And the best way to do it is to take a preset, look at it, and start messing around with it and build something from there. And then you learn, reverse engineer. That's always a good way to learn.
Well, I never had a clue what I was doing with FM. I've had a DX7 and I've had a DX, was it the 21 as well? And also the CX5 and all. I didn't do any programming on that. It was the 21, I think, that where I first started to try and, it's basically because the presets were crap on it.
Yeah.
So I started getting it, trying to learn it, and the way I was doing it was I'd use like an operator for each kind of element of the sound. So if there was a clicky part to it, I'd do one operator that was clicky, and I was stacking them like that. And I don't know if that was the right way, but that seemed to work for me. It was
if it works, then it's the right way.
Yeah,
it's the right way for you, and that's all that matters. So I think I made that comment about analog subtractive synthesis not being the be all and end all, the benchmark, and Aaron just said, "Shots fired, bring it on." Actually, talking to Ty, I was talking to him about this, and he was telling me about his Polybrute, which he was very averse to getting, but has slightly turned, shall we say. And he was telling me all about that, and that might be something I might be interested in soon. We shall see. Bonus has been paid, you never know. I could do with a nice analog poly. So that
seems like a good one.
It's synthesizer feng shui.
If you don't really need many voices, that's perfect.
No, he said the same thing. He said, "Well, do remember it is only 6 voices." I said, "For you, Ty, that's probably a problem because you can play. Me, no." So, but yes, there we go. And Ty's back in the group as well, which is good to see. So hopefully we'll get some engagement out of there, and we'll try and
back.
Yeah, try and get him back on the show as well. So that'd be good. Yeah. Right, enough of that. Let's move on to something, because I know that people think I go on too much about FM, and I probably do. So
there was a few complaints about the lack of bingo. Somebody could have strolled home tonight with that.
I know, yeah, absolutely. I haven't mentioned Widdies. Oh, there you go. I've just mentioned them. Yes, they could have done
D-Beam.
Yeah, D-Beam's been in there, and of course, FM and DX and Kodamo.
We should look at bringing that back.
Anyway, there you go. So that is the Kodamo EssenceFM Mk.II, still available now from Kodamo.org, and they are now selling also through Thomann, musicstore.de, DV247, and a couple of other places too. If you go to the Kodamo's Facebook page, they've just listed the suppliers that they've got in place there. So if you're interested, go for it. It's I don't think you'll regret it. Anyway, let's move on to something new. This news came in just this week, and this was completely unexpected. I think it took the entire industry by surprise, apart from the 2 companies that were involved in it, and that is the news that Native Instruments and Izotope have come together to create an unprecedented alliance to shape the future of music making. I think that's an awful statement. I don't think, who says Native Instruments and Izotope should be, it's like, you're part of the Rebel Alliance. So, yeah, they've come together. Basically, what it is the venture capital company or investment company, Francisco Partners and EMH Partners, who recently, or fairly recently, took over NI, have now brought Izotope into the fold. And whilst both companies will still function independently, obviously there's going to be a lot of technology sharing, knowledge sharing, resource sharing, and maybe we'll see Izotope's products turn up in Native Instruments and vice versa. I'm not a fan of these, of any kind of mergers, but Cryss, what are your thoughts on Izotope, who makes some fantastic things, merging with NI?
Well, I honestly don't have too much to say about it because I don't have any native Instruments products.
Okay.
I think I downloaded their free stuff at one point and hated the interface so bad I never used it again. Izotope I'm relatively new at. I think I got their stuff like at Black Friday, so that's been good. Actually, I've been using some of their things like RX8 is a really great product.
Yeah.
And so far I've had no problems with it. Their product manager and things like that have all been really easy for me to use. So still working my way through their plugins because I got one of the bundles, so it's like tons of stuff plus some free things I got along the way. I mean, probably the same thing as you guys would say. Like, if they share the good stuff and not the bad stuff, that will be wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah,
I sure like Izotope's interface is a lot better than Native Instruments. So if some stuff went that way, but you said that it was a parent company, right?
Yeah. So the way it's been described, it's this investment company took over Native Instruments fairly recently, maybe the last couple of years. They've now brought in Izotope underneath that umbrella. They've said that they're creating a new group, but they haven't said it's Native Atope or Iso Instruments or something. There's no name for it. It's kind of like they said, look, we've got them and they belong to us. All your plugin developers belong to us.
I remember at one point many years ago I was working in sales, and a particular company I was working for came underneath the management of this was a company who was doing millions of dollars for that I was working for every year, and they went to some other third party, say, hey, we want some management and to get some kind of new ideas in here. And this is the company that was bragging that they advise Guitar Center.
Right.
And so if you can imagine, I heard this, was like, oh boy, this isn't going to end well. So it can be good and bad, but like I think about Music Tribe and TC Electronic, because TC Electronic was like just knocking them out of the park for a while when they had Tor heading up that. And then when they came in, I don't know what the details are. I don't remember. I'm sure I read about it sometime in the past. But Tor left, and now he's at Universal Audio, which is good. But then kind of what have they done since then that's been really that interesting? So these things can be a bit mixed,
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, what are your thoughts on this merger? Or it's not a merger, but it's a bringing together.
Yeah. Well, so they say. Yeah.
So they say, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm reading that article. It seems as though there might be more acquisitions in the pipeline as well. There was on about like bringing in a DAW would be an excellent addition to that, that group. And I hope that like Native Instruments do adopt some of Izotope's ways of doing things, because
workflows and stuff.
Yeah, it's just that some of the NI stuff, like Chris said, the interface it sucks. Like I'd love Battery. Battery's my only Native Instrument thing that I've got, and I think it's great. But I mean, that used to look like, I don't know, it was something from a sensible software game. It looked like it was a military piece of hardware done in a cartoon style. Like it was awful, and like I think it was in one of the recent upgrades. It got a refresh and looks a lot better. But it's a great piece of software. It sounds great. It's dead good to use. But I think they could, and also the way of doing things as well. I don't think that Contact is handled correctly at all. I think Contact should be free. And there should be a developer version of it for the people who want to make packs for it, and they pay for that. And everybody else should have it for free, because you've got to buy the content to go into it, So
yeah,
and the free one, it doesn't even work on my computer.
No, well, I mean, I think anybody that knows me knows my dislike for Contact as a product, not the company, but the actual product itself. I don't like using it. It doesn't fit my way of doing things. I think it's too expensive for what it is. There are better things out there. that might not be so well supported in terms of third-party content, but
Yeah.
certainly, if I want a tool that does everything that Contact does and more, then there are other options which are more affordable and have what I want going for them. I just don't like Contact. Just full stop. I just don't like it.
It's too bad that a lot of the third-party software instruments and sampler stuff, are making it so much exclusively for Contact. It's not that difficult to make a second version of it for even if it's just starting with Logic, because a lot of people, I have seen some people that are doing that. Samples from Mars, for instance, you can get a pack that you can load into your Contact, or you can load into Logic, and I think there may be one or two others. I can't remember, but when you download, you see everything that's there. It's like, okay, well, I'll load it into Logic Sampler instead, which is free to me, and it's a great piece of software. I like the interface. And you're thinking, if you're a developer and you're selling hundreds or thousands of your particular instrument, why not spend a little bit extra time and make it for some of the other samplers? And it'll be good for the consumer. You'll get a lot more sales because, how many things have I passed up because it's paid Contact only? Like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But to open up their sales, and also for the market in general, because Contact has such a corner on that. It's not a monopoly, but it's definitely heading in that direction, that if there could be some sort of competitor, their prices would have to drop in response to that, or at least if they were smart.
Yeah. There was a time back in the 90s when you'd buy a sample library and it would come on a CD-ROM in multiple, or it might come on two CD-ROMs in a pack. So what were they called? Pro samples, I think it was. And they used to come through Best Service or something like that. And you'd have Akai, Halion, EXS, and WAV, and maybe one other. And so you had these 5 formats. So you just, you had probably 2 discs, one with, 2 formats on, one with 3 formats on. You just picked the one you wanted, and there you go. And that was, of course, back in the day when we used to have CD-ROM-based sample libraries. Nowadays, it's all downloaded. And you'd think that, if there are multiple software sampler formats, so you've got, the Logic sampler, you've got Contact, and there are, various others as well, that surely to spread your wares across the biggest possible market, you would do that. It's been a while since I've been in the sample translation world, but it's not always as straightforward as it sounds. But certainly with software scripted samplers, you would have thought maybe it's just a case of building your script and your template and then just dropping the content in, dropping the samples in, where you need to, and then tweaking. I don't know. But I agree that that there should be plenty of options out there, and why things. I hate it when I see something that is Contact exclusive, or does not work with the free player, and more companies seem to be doing it. There was one recently whose name escapes me. Sample Logic, I think, was it? I don't want to say because I might be saying the wrong company, but they used to do everything, massive libraries that would work with the player. They would actually come with the player, and they would work no problem at all. And they've now reverted to paid Contact only, and the price has dropped on those products. So that just says to me they were having to charge a hefty price to get it to work on the free player, and passing that cost on to the customer, and therefore probably not selling as many copies as they would hope to have done. But if they pay if they don't pay the licensing fee for the free player and just the one for the standard thing, it widens that market, but it keeps it within Contact. And it's all politics.
And quite frankly, it'd be great to get more stuff for the free Contact player, but I don't want it. I don't like the Contact player in general. So
it's an ugly. It
doesn't
interface.
matter if I have to pay for the full version or not. I just don't want to use it. It's not a pleasant thing. But Izotope. Let's talk about them. Izotope makes some truly incredible products. Let's be honest. Some of their stuff is, it's the Photoshop of audio. It's the go-to thing for removing noise and stuff. I mean, I use it all the time
doing spoken word stuff, and I can make myself sound like I'm in a really expensive studio using a pretty expensive microphone and not a spare bedroom with a Behringer C1. And I can get rid of reverb without having to put in panels on my thing. Yeah, it's just so good at what it does. I did see a comment that in the chat room about they didn't like the fact that Izotope did the same thing in 5 different products, which there is some bleed over, I guess. But they do make some really innovative stuff and have done for many years. And the thing that concerns me about this is that will get watered down or limited in some. I don't know. They say that the companies are going to operate independently as normal.
Yeah.
But for how long?
Maybe the more valuable merger was Izotope, and exponential audio.
Yes.
A lot of people really love the reverbs. The new Neo Verb with Izotope is really good for that stuff. So there's where and I don't have any exponential audio. I don't think I do anyway. But just taking a look online at what the interface looks like versus what like Neo Verb looks like, so you get some of the great sound engines from exponential audio, but maybe Izotope's specialty at the GUI. So there's something that was a very positive move for Izotope.
Yeah, definitely. I guess time will tell.
How long has this the company that took over Native Instruments? How long have they had control of them? Anyone any idea? I was just wondering if big changes were going to come to NI as well.
Well, they became the majority shareholder in January of this year. So 5 months ago, Daniel Haver stepped away from Native Instruments, and I think they did. I think the company, the Francisco Partners, had been invested in them, but they were also just like a minority shareholder. And now, in January, they took over the majority, which then gives them the clout to go out and do something like this, which is what they've done. So
and perhaps it might mean some improvements for Native Instruments, because there's been a number of areas that people have been very critical about. Like preset management, like the unfinished Massive X, which is a great sounding synthesizer. But if you read any thread on that, there are just they're just slamming NI for all sorts of stuff. Like, hey, why don't you finish this? Why didn't this work correctly? It's been noted many times, many people putting in requests, and it's just not been dealt with. But you've got 4 new instruments out, so
Yeah. And let's be fair to Native Instruments. They do have some good stuff, but it's not all good, certainly in my opinion. But there are some really good things, in their offering, both hardware and software. But I don't think they're quite as good as they used to be, or maybe quite as good as they think they are anymore. But yeah.
Dominic says the trouble with Native Instruments is too many products. Imagine being a product manager for them.
Yeah.
And I agree. You can see where companies do that, where an excellent example is Steve Jobs and Tim Cook. If you look at Steve Jobs, everything is narrowed in. Like, this is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to go, and it's going to be perfect. But you lose out a little bit on the variety, right? And Tim Cook came in, and he's opposite in that regard. Let's do everything. Let's just go all over the place. But then, there's nothing that's really super fine-tuned with it.
Yeah.
I think about the product range of Music Tribe as well. If you go across all their things.
Native Instruments more closely resembles like the Tim Cook philosophy of let's just give lots of options, lots of options, and not really finish things.
This is true. Maybe it will give NI some focus. Who knows? But
I hope so.
It's happening. It's happened. So we shall see what comes out of that in the coming months and years. But fingers crossed, it will be for the benefit of the business, but also for the benefit of the end user. So that's Native Instruments and Izotope all kind of falling under the same roof. Bit of sad news now. So I'm imagining that not a huge amount of people knew who Lou Ottens was But Lou Ottens was the guy that invented the cassette tape for Philips. And he also had a hand, I believe, in the development of the compact disc. But sadly, he died at the age of 94 in North Brabant. And it's a sad loss. But boy, where would we be without the cassette tape? It's such a pivotal thing, wasn't it?
It was a great invention. It took all the hassle out of tape. Like, totally.
Yeah. I mean, it was the format that I decided to kind of centre on as a kid, because whilst I had records, I couldn't take the records out with me. And, you know, I was a teenager when the Walkman came out, and so I just thought it's obvious. It's obvious that cassette is the way to go, because I could move around. When I got in the car, I could just take it out of my Walkman and stick it in the car. When I got home, I could just put it in the player. It was just like a universal portable format. And I know that there is a huge amount of people today that have no experience with cassette tapes. I actually bought one today. Look at that.
Wow.
Do you remember Bob? I think Ben, you might remember Bob. Bob, B.O.B., British kind of guitar band from the late 80s, early 90s. Brand new cassette. It's having a comeback, apparently, so they say.
Yeah.
But,
that was something that I read in the article there about this. He said that a lot of people go on about the sound of cassette being like warm, tape being warm, and vinyl having
bit of wow and flutter.
The more personal feel in that. He said, but nothing beats the CD. They put a load of work into making the ultimate thing. It must be so frustrating when people go back to the format that was out before.
Well, everyone's gone back to vinyl. Or I say everyone. So many people have gone back to vinyl because it has a quality that people like.
A character.
A character, yeah absolutely. Yeah. And cassettes could sound really good if you were using, chromium dioxide with, it could sound really, really good. And do you remember the smell of a blank chrome cassette? It had a smell about it.
I used to be dead chuffed opening a cassette and putting all the stickers on. Writing it up.
Writing and sticking them on. Yeah. You'd do that thing where you're rushing and you'd write it and then you'd stick it on and run your thumb over it to press it and then smudge all the ink. Oh, got to do it again.
Yeah. And then screwing up the paper to stick in the hole, because thought that this is finished. This 4-track master is finished. Let's break these tabs off. And then you realise that somebody farted or something in the chorus, and you've got to wipe it off.
That's it.
So you got to stick a piece of paper in the thing to
shut the tab off.
Enable the thing.
That's the thing is it's a nostalgia for a certain time period, and not so much. I don't think so much the quality of the sound, unless you're doing that kind of lo-fi ambient type of thing. But I mean, it was a very convenient thing even after CDs came out. I remember I had whatever the Panasonic version of the Discman was. I had a Walkman tape cassette player, and I had after that I had the a portable CD player. But when I was a teenager, I was doing work driving tractors, and so I couldn't take out a CD player because it would just jiggle it to death. But how many hours did I log with underneath my headphones some earbuds playing a Van Halen tape or whatever it was I was listening to. Just there's a nostalgia to it, and it's been funny because we've seen these plugins, especially in the last year. It's been a really hip thing. Now I've got a couple of them for free, and then I bought the Sketch cassette, the Aberrant DSP, which I think we talked about. I bought that one, and that one is great. But I've got the Waves Factory, and I can't remember one other one as well, or one or two other ones. But it had, you listen to the sound, then it that part of it is not as nostalgic for me, because I remember, recording on a Tascam 424 and being so utterly frustrated because I'd have a really great tone coming out of my amp, and I'd record it, and then it's like, where did all the sizzle go out of this? Or you, even if you managed to you'd boost your treble a little bit so that it makes it to tape okay, but then you bounce those 3 tracks to the fourth and listen to the second generation. You're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I don't know if Ben, you're probably you are old enough to remember. Home taping is killing music. The little cassette with the cross skull and crossbones thing, and there was talk of taxes on cassette sales to discourage people from using it, and yet all the major kind of manufacturers all had a finger in all the pies. So record labels had cassettes. You could buy blank cassettes from HMV or Virgin, and then just go home and record. I mean, honestly, we had this culture in the 80s that I would buy an album. So say 1 week the Smiths album came out, and the next week a-ha came out. Well, my mate would buy the Smiths, and I'd buy a-ha, and then we'd get together and we'd swap it over, tape it, and then we'd got both each. And that was how we distributed our music. And we'd make mixtapes for girlfriends, and you'd spend all those hours trying to write it in on the thing and making sure that you got all the words in before the break in the lines. And,
or if you didn't have money, you were recording it off the radio. So all your mixtapes had like the intros, the stupid DJ talking over the intro of the song.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was a tradition over here because like every Sunday we'd have the charts on Radio 1. And you would, turn it on at it was in the evening, wasn't it? It was at like 5 or 6 or something. And then you'd sit there and you'd be waiting for him to say, and now at number 26, it's Adam and the Ants. And you go, and then you'd do it just as he stopped talking. And then you'd wait. Is he going to talk? Is he going to talk? Is he going to? Oh, damn. He said, and then that's the bit that you hear at the end. But yeah, I mean, it was just so much fun, but it was so annoying. And then, of course, when the tape got caught around the capstans and the heads, and you'd have to gently pull it out. And I even had a tape editing bar, that little metal bar.
I had one of them. Yeah. But you had to demagnetize the heads and regularly clean the heads.
Yeah, and adjust the azimuth.
Yeah,
you don't have to adjust the azimuth on anything nowadays. Too.
We don't have to do anything now, do we?
No, pencils are redundant.
Yeah,
because that was the prime tool of anybody that played lots of cassette was the pencil.
I remember when the first CDs came out, though, because you could just stick your favorite song on repeat, or if you were trying to learn a part on keyboard or guitar part off of something, you could just hit repeat and keep going back.
Yeah.
Or if your favorite song was the 11th one on the album. You could go straight to it right away.
Exactly. But do you remember how I remember getting really excited about getting my first auto reverse cassette deck.
Yeah, but I was going to say,
And then I had a cassette deck both at home and in my car that would find the track based on the gap between the tracks. So it would go, play through without without the audio, find the gap in the track, and then go back a touch.
Cue review,
that's it. That's the one, cue review. And I was just like, wow, that's so cool. And then, of course, CD comes out and you think, oh, I can do all of that instantly. And I can program it. I can shuffle the tracks. I can do repeats like Cryss said. But CD early on was awful because it was very lacking in dynamics. I mean, it was crystal clear, but it had no bollocks to it, did it? It had no meat and veg or whatever you want to call it. Of course, it got considerably better over the years, but
we was obsessed with the digital thing then. I remember it used to have like ADD on the back of the CD, didn't it? Or DDD, and that was the best.
DDD was the pinnacle because it was recorded digitally, mastered digitally, and it was. And
now we're doing everything we can to destroy it. You destroy the sound before it gets to that point.
I know. We have vinyl
on
vinyl
my first it'd be my second CD player, which was like a kind of boombox type thing. And you had the shuffle algorithm on there, which was fantastic because if you got bored of listening to your album the same way, but it was so limited in how it did it, and I didn't know anything about it for a long time, but I'd have these premonitions of the next song on shuffle, and man, I thought I was developing some sort of extrasensory perception or something, because I'd be like, man, it's going to be it's going to be a day in the life that's coming up next, and I've only listened to 2 songs on this and shuffle, and then I would I would guess like 5 or 6 in a row off an album of like the order, but I didn't realize your brain was sensing the patterns of the algorithm.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to start levitating now.
Yeah. And do you remember what, because we had cassettes, didn't we? And then CD came along. But for a while, obviously, CD was a read-only format for a period of time. And then before CDRs became very popular and into the drives, the discs were probably quite easily available. But I remember it was being able to afford a CDR drive on your computer that you could burn discs with. But before then, there were like a couple of competing formats. There was mini disc, and then there was DCC. And DCC was a Philips thing that used digital, cassette. So it was kind of like DAT in a way. Yeah. It's like DAT, and that's the way it is. But it was. But the good thing about DCC is that it was backwards compatible with compact cassette.
Yeah.
So you could play all your other stuff. And I was so tempted to buy one. And then eventually somebody said, no, get mini disc. It's better. And I guess it lasted a little bit longer, but of course the digital revolution by this time was really ramping up, and
DCC was the better format though.
Like Betamax was the better video format. But unfortunately, neither format had a huge adoption from the labels in terms of putting out pre-recorded content. I've got some pre-recorded mini discs, but I remember the stand in my local record store was just like a meter high and a meter wide, and that was the entire mini disc stuff. But then it was at that time in the 90s and the noughties that the digital revolution was just unrelenting, and even once CDRs had become quite popular, all of a sudden now we could just have MP3s, and then it all kind of died away, and it's just become digital. And then of course we had the whole kind of physical revisit with vinyl becoming incredibly popular, and then cassettes are still popular and will be increasingly
popular. That.
Classic iPod. I'd still like one of those because it's a stylish icon, isn't it? That one, it's just a lovely thing. I only ever had iPod, the mini ones, and then I just I think by the time I could afford a proper iPod, my phone was being able to play lots of stuff, because that's the way I consume. Everything is on this now, and I can either stream that to any speaker around the house, it goes in the car, and it automatically hooks up to the hi-fi in the car, and I've got Apple Music, so I've got access to everything that I could possibly want, which was unheard of back then.
But you can't get any like uncompressed audio from Apple Music, can you? Or can you?
No, well, they use. I think didn't they? They did stuff. It's all kind of compressed, but it's not MP3, is it? It's AAC.
It's like CD quality, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good, but it's not ideal. But there are so many lossless, uncompressed music stores out there now
Bandcamp.
Online.
Yeah, that's one reason I
Bandcamp.
get stuff off there now. You can.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Lossless is, Neil Young, that's it. What was his thing? Punani, something like that. He had a lossless digital file player that he said was going to take over from the likes of iTunes with their crappy, lossy compression formats. What was that called? Somebody in the chat room remind me. Neil Young got all angry old man about it and said, "Yeah, damn these companies like Apple putting out compressed Pono." There you go. Synth Addict just put it in the chat room. Pono. Quite why it was called Pono, I don't know. But yeah,
Pono.
But yeah, it could have been.
Yeah.
But that died a death. I don't think it even got quite alive, really. But there you go. So. There'll be something new. I like multi-channel audio. I like surround sound or music that 5.1. I've got a ton of that stuff on SACD, DVD audio, and I'm surprised that you can still buy stuff new nowadays. Blu-ray obviously being the format of choice, but I'm surprised that nobody's come up with a really. It exists. Digital multi-channel audio files exist.
Yeah.
But nothing in such a way as it has become a commercial success. I don't know whether... I know DTS came up with DTS X, which was a headphone-based... Bless him. He's going to go again. No.
Yeah. I think that's... I think that, like, the success of iTunes and the phone and that kind of tells you that music is an on-the-go thing mainly. I think the likes of us that sit there wanting it in the perfect environment surrounding it, we're the minority, aren't we?
What is the one thing that there's a lot of things that annoy me about the youth today, because now I'm in my 50s, I legitimately moan about them. But one of the things is kids that roam the streets with their friends, listening it to their phone, just like this.
Yeah.
And although the speakers in an iPhone or an Android phone nowadays are really, compared to what they used to be, very good, that's not how you listen to music. No. But that's how they do. And we used to go up the playing field with a damn great hi-fi with twin cassette decks and super 3D subwoofers.
It's like the same size as a CS80.
Yeah, and you'd carry it on your shoulder. It was a badge of honour, And you'd walk up the streets annoying the neighbours with this and
roll the lino on the other arm.
Yeah, get off my land. So yeah, damn kids with their mobile phones. I just think it's awful. You see them walking up and down the town centre, or you used to when you could go out in the public, and like 6 kids, and then somebody's holding their phone like this, and they're listening to this tinny crap. I don't know what it is. I mean, the music's crap itself, but then play it through a mobile phone.
What bothers me is that it's not just when they're out on the streets, and this is not just kids. Like adults do it all the time too. Like if you go and you sit at Starbucks to have a cup of coffee, the jackass at the next table is like blasting music, or worse, some video on their phone.
And yet we have technology that you can connect multiple Bluetooth headphone devices to a single thing, and they've all got little earbuds and stuff. Just get in your little world, put your headphones on, and we don't want to hear your rubbish. So honestly, yes. Anyway, on that note,
rights there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think somebody did call this the old codger show, and damn right. Yeah, we're old. Yeah, we've earned our right. Yeah, we've earned our right. Yeah, we've earned our right to be miserable and angry at the world. Anyway, there you go, lads. It's we're over time, but I think we've had a lot of good discussion about cassette tapes and native instruments takeovers, nostalgia, and of course dongles. We wouldn't have been nice if we'd had the dongle topic last week, and we could have asked the dongle meister himself, Mr. Gerd van Schlanger. And by the way, if you want, we've actually published, thanks to Ben, he edited Geert's appearance, so if you just want to watch that and share that around, by all means do. It's on our channel. We'll be doing more clip videos hopefully fairly soon. Shall we tell people about our forthcoming guest roster? We've got Dina Perlman scheduled for next week. Actually, a quick word on that. So Dina is scheduled to come onto the show with us next week. And she's going to be talking about her work with the foundation that's in the name of her father, the Alan R. Perlman Foundation. But I had a phone call from Dina, and she's managed to get a booking for her first COVID jab. And it's going to be the day before. So what it might do, what she's worried about, is that she might be suffering some side effects, because people do. And so she's kind of pre-warned us. So we might have to postpone Dina from next week, but fingers crossed she'll be all well and good. Do you want to? Shall we mention some of the other guests that we've got lined up coming in?
Sure.
Yeah.
Also, before we do, the end of the month, we'll of course be having Simon Alexander on, of course.
Yep.
And I think in that one will probably be our anniversary show, because it was. Yeah. I think the first video that we have up on YouTube was from March 30th of last year. So we'll do something, celebrate Pro Synth Network being on Facebook. Now, the group has been going longer than that, but our live stream dates to a year ago.
Yeah. I never thought we'd do a year.
Yeah. and yet here we are. So, in terms of...
I guess if I'm just looking at the dates right now, though, that might be postponed if Dina's postponed.
Yeah, so we'll work around that, and hopefully Dina will be able to join us on the 19th. But if not, then we'll have to.
Yeah, we'll get it worked out no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. But if everything goes as planned, we have the wonderful Dina Perlman coming on next week. So do stay tuned for that, and of course hit the subscribe button and hit the bell and then you get notified of when those shows. So I think you get a notification when we put the show up ahead of time, and then you'll get another one when it's about to go live. So do that. So Dina Perlman next week, and then the week after we should be joined by Simon Alexander. So he's going to make his kind of almost monthly appearance with us, which I think is a nice thing to have Simon on every few weeks to discuss with him his latest acquisitions and his views on the synthesizer world. And then April, we have got some doozies for you. I won't give you dates, but I'm going to tell you that in the month of April, we will be joined in individual shows by Philip Taysom from Modal Electronics, Lisa Belladonna, and the genius keyboard player that is Matt Baxley, aka Moot Bootsley, who is just he's just an incredible human being, and I'm so excited. But yeah, Matt, Lisa Belladonna, Philip Taysom, all coming up this April, and there will be more names added as we move on through that month and beyond. So please do hit the likes and the subscribes and the bells as much as you can. We've got some great guests for you, and they want to see you and talk to you and join in the fun. So we're super excited about that. It's Philip Taysom, really, what a great guy. What a studio he's had in the past, and what a great company he heads up with Modal Electronics. So we'll be, Cryss and I are, big fans. We've got Modal gear, and we want to quiz him about what's going to be happening with that platform, because I'm sure there's going to be more coming down the line. And of course, the wonderful Lisa Belladonna, who is just an amazing musician. I really want to kind of find out what makes her tick, and her love of
studio as well. Let's talk about her studio.
Oh, hopefully she'll be right in the middle of it. So anyway, yeah. What a great lineup of guests we've got coming up over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Please do join us for as much of that as you possibly can, and hit the like button, the subscribe button, and of course the all-important bell. Do make sure, if you haven't already, do join us on our Facebook page. That's where kind of like all that stuff happens. It's where we post questions and polls and discussion topics, and where we also get ideas for elements on the show. You can also follow us on Twitter, where you can also watch the show live every Friday as well. We're on Instagram, and of course I've mentioned Facebook, and of course you're watching us on YouTube. I guess most of you are. You can find us all there. Cryss?
2 things. I think the time change is this weekend, at least for Americans.
Oh, okay.
So spring forward, it'll happen an hour earlier for us, at least. Right, because yours isn't happening yet. Is that right?
We don't go until the end of March, I believe. So daylight savings in the UK kicks in on the 28th of March. So that's just over 2 weeks' time. And then in the US, you're saying it's this weekend or next weekend?
I believe it's in 2 days, Sunday.
Let's just have let's just double check, because then we will need to make sure that everyone
now, one of the nice things though is that
14th.
Because if you register your location with YouTube, when you hit the bell or you see our video up there, it'll automatically tell you the right time, what it is, no matter what.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll make sure that when we publicise the show across all the social media platforms, we'll make sure that for those 2 weeks, our friends in America get the correct time. And that's going to be scary, because I always, even though I work for an American company and know the time differences like off by heart, when I have to do stuff like this, I always get worried that I'll do it the wrong direction. So we'll get that sorted, and we'll get that publicised. But yes, please be aware of that from next Friday for 2 weeks, and then us here in Britain and the rest of the world. I think most of the world goes the same time. It says, "Damn Americans! What are you going to do?"
Hey, the Rebel Alliance, we want our freedom, and we're going to change time when we want.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honour, as per usual. Thank you for your company once again.
Thank you.
We will see you same time So maybe not the same time, but yeah, I'll be careful what I say here. We'll see you next week, next Friday, whatever time zone you are living in. We'll make sure that we let you know all of that. And to everyone in the chat room, thanks again for sticking around and throwing in your comments and your positive messages and even the not so positive messages. We really do appreciate your participation. We do this for you guys. And we're delighted that you come back to us week after week after week. And of course, you can catch up with this show and all the other shows on our YouTube channel. So please go in there and please do like and subscribe. And we will really appreciate that. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Take great
Thanks
care.
for
Have a
joining
wonderful
us.
weekend. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Go get your jabs if you can. And we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.